Current NBA players who would fit in the 90s NBA. Can you name some players who might be a perfect fit for the 90s NBA? As we've heard before, old heads think that the NBA now is too soft. Players won't last in the 90s where hard-nosed defense and physical action took place. In short, you had to earn every point back then. However, there are a few exceptions. I think some NBA players today are more suited to the 90s brand of basketball. And who are they? We're talking about players who are not shying away from contact, driving hard to the basket, and play defense from end to end. And as for big men, we're talking about those who don't fall in love with the three. They utilize their size more in the paint than beyond it. And more importantly, their mentality speaks for their game. If you want to last in the 90s, mental toughness is key. Sports are 1/3 physical and 2/3 mental. And psychological warfare was more common back then. You will have to take every advantage you can get. If we had to go back in time and assemble a starting five, these players would fit right in back in the 90s. Hi, I'm Ben Cuevas from Watson Sports. And here are 5 current NBA players who would fit in the 90s. Damian Lillard. People might say Lillard shoots from the logo. His game is far from what we see in the 90s NBA. However, don't forget that Lillard also goes strong to the basket. While his range is one of his best assets, Lillard has a versatile offensive weapon. He can shoot threes, he can drive to the lane, and he can make plays at quarter court. The most old school factor about Dame is his mentality and his loyalty. He never asked for help, nor does he plan to team up with a super team. For now, he did commit to Portland for the rest of his career. Plus, he always plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's constantly trying to prove every critic wrong every season. The remaining item on his bucket list right now is to prove people he can carry the Blazers to their first NBA title since 1977. Patrick Beverley. If anybody reminds current fans about old school basketball, it's Patrick Beverley of the Los Angeles Clippers. He's a high-level defender that can get into your head. He never shies away from physicality and will always give 100% night in and night out. If you're on his team, you'll love him and he'll have your back. And if he's on the other side, his antics will irritate you for sure. But one thing's for sure, Beverley can compete with the guards of the 90s NBA. Imagine him going back and forth with a Gary Payton. That would be something to watch. Jimmy Butler. If we learned anything about the 2020 NBA Finals, Jimmy Butler is tough as nails. Remember when fans perceived Butler as a locker room cancer in Minnesota and Philadelphia? Apparently, Butler just wanted to instill a winning culture in the teams he played with. And unfortunately for the Timberwolves and the Sixers, they didn't have a winning culture when he was there. He laid the foundation in Miami and his teammates happily obliged. The scrappy Heat team went all the way to the NBA Finals where they held their own until losing in Game 6 to the Los Angeles Lakers. Jimmy Butler really reminds us how tough as nails NBA players in the 90s could really get. Draymond Green. If the 90s proved anything, being an undersized power forward can still get you anywhere as long as you have the heart and the right mindset. There was Dennis Rodman and Charles Barkley and even Anthony Mason. And right now, Draymond Green has shown being undersized has nothing to do with defending or rebounding the ball. Green is one of the main pillars of the Golden State Warriors dynasty run in the mid to late 2010s. At 6'7", Green dwarfs in comparison to his counterparts that stands 6'10" and up. Aside from his hustle, Green is also one of the best trash talkers in the NBA today, and it would be interesting how he would hold up against the likes of the Rodmans, Barkleys, and Karl Malones of the 90s. He may lose the battle, but Green would be right in their faces the whole time. The Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo. The reigning two-time NBA MVP is one of the players we see right now that is still looking to dominate inside the paint. In fact, Shaquille says Giannis reminds him of himself. The way he dominates inside the paint and plays bully ball underneath. Even if Antetokounmpo has better handles than O'Neal, he never forced himself to play the perimeter. While his offense is likened to Shaq, his defense is more of a Hakeem Olajuwon's. He safeguards the middle when playing the zone. On the other hand, he can contain his big man when playing man-to-man defense, and like Olajuwon, Antetokounmpo became the first player since the Houston Rockets legend to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. As for loyalty is concerned, he has expressed the same commitment as Lillard. He has no plans of teaming up with another superstar to leave Milwaukee as long as he is playing in the NBA for now. And those are our current players. And those are the current NBA players who would fit in the 90s NBA. I'm Ben Cuevas from Watson Sports. For more content just like this, head on over to watsonsports.com.